Hi, and welcome to our monthly webinar series where we discuss a variety of topics that directly influence your business. My name is Charles. I am the IT director, or the Director of Business Development at iTernal Networks. As a heads up, we are muting everyone for the purpose of this webinar, but we do enjoy your participation. That's in our polls and in our question and answers portion. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat box. There will be a raffle during our discussion, so please stay for the entirety of the webinar. So, running a business today is a challenge. With all the cybersecurity threats, what do you do? And that's the topic of today's webinar. What do hackers want? How do they do it? And how can we better be prepared? I'm joined with Michael Cannett, founder of iTernal Networks. Mike, would you like to tell our viewers a little bit more about iTernal Networks and introduce our guest speaker for today?
Yeah, sure, I'd love to. Thanks, Charles. So I'm the owner, founder of iTernal Networks. We've been doing IT support for other businesses in the Las Vegas area for about 11 and a half years. And our core purpose is to help others have a safe and secure environment for them to do what they love. We treat our clients' networks, our clients, like family. We like working with them. We love helping them to make sure they're safe and secure and that they can really thrive in doing the things that they enjoy doing. We're super excited today to be able to bring Special Agent Buel from the FBI. He works on the Cybersecurity Task Force here in Las Vegas. He's going to be joining us and talking about some of the threats that we face today. And we frequently, get asked questions from clients and others that we work with on what they can do to be safe, what kind of risks are out there, and there's a lot of them. There's phishing, there's ransomware, there's all kinds of stuff. We're going to talk about some of those today with Agent Buel. He's going to share some of what he's seeing out there in the real world, and help give us some tips on how we can protect our businesses and be safe. So we'd like to kick things off before Agent Buel gets started with a poll question. So we'll go ahead and send that out to you now. We'd like to know, have you been hit with ransomware in your business in the past? That can be the last year, 2 years, 3 years. We don't care when. Just let us know if you've been affected by ransomware in your business. And while those polls are being answered and coming in, I will take great pleasure here in turning the time over to Special Agent Buel. Agent Buel.
Hey, Michael, thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming.
Let me share my screen here.
Looks like the poll results are in. So most of those here in attendance have not been hit with ransomware. That's excellent, and we've got a small percentage that isn't sure if they've been affected by that or not. So.
All right, well, I'll just jump right into it. So in general terms, the FBI, we like to categorize cyber threat groups into 6 primary categories. The first being hacktivism. That's where an actor may have a malicious agenda and focus on defacements, denial of service, exfiltration, or deploying destructive malware. For example, groups like Anonymous will conduct website defacement or post victims' personally identifiable information, PII. The second group, crime or financial crime, those are financially motivated crimes. This is where we see the bulk of a lot of our crime, and this you'll see these type of actors potentially attack you guys, whether it be through phishing emails or ransomware, business email compromises, etc. Insider threats. Those are potential insider threat actors include non-technical employees with access to sensitive data, third-party contractors, partners, IT administrators. Insider threat activity can be wittingly malicious theft attacks or unwitting accidental data leaks or destruction. We also have espionage, which is more aligned towards nation-state activity. You also hear this referred to as advanced persistent threat, or APT. This is done through aggressive targeting. Typically, the targets are U.S. defense contractors, U.S. governments, or companies with proprietary data. Then you have the cyber terrorists. These actors are typically aspirational in nature. They will likely focus on industrial control systems or SCADA systems. And then finally, you have warfare, and that's just overall cyber warfare tactics. And these may be nation-state actors attempting to sabotage critical infrastructure systems in order to gain advantage during a time of conflict. These are just general categories for cyber actors. Really, any individual actor may have multiple motivations, so they could have multiple. These categories could fit in multiple actors. So it really depends on that actor and the type of threat you're facing. So now we've defined the different threat groups. I want to go over what they're after, what's being targeted. So, and that's really, before you can understand or secure yourself, you really need to look at what you have, what you consider to be the quote unquote crown jewels of your company. Do you collect PII? Are you working to develop a new technology? This will really help you determine where to invest your cyber resources. Personal data is a very popular target. That includes PII, PHI, which is personal health information, personal credit card information. PCI is also a very popular target. And the purpose is typically to obtain this data, resell it, or potentially cause damage with this data. So a lot of this data is used in criminal nature. There's also health, medical industry, so healthcare data. We typically see these targets, universities, pharmaceutical companies are targets for intellectual property. And then there's also agricultural targets, IoT, and then a big target that I see a lot of that I think gets overlooked is your trusted vendors. And these are typically the small businesses, contractors, third-party companies. Ransomware, for example, you'll see there's a big trend where managed services companies will be a target in an effort to infect multiple customers of theirs. So it's kind of, you compromise one target, and by compromising one target, you're compromising potentially dozens of targets. So the purpose of this slide is just to illustrate the monetary loss. And this data is from the Internet Crime Complaint Center, IC3. So since the inception of IC3, which was in 2000, we've had over 4 million complaints. We receive approximately 280,000 complaints a year. And from those complaints, the total loss amounts were added up. And as you can see, it's quite a large number. And I also want to keep everyone in mind that this is only a number of reported losses, not the actual loss. So this is just a very, very small fraction of people that have reported cyber crimes or cyber activity to us. Then below we have examples. So from the IC3 data, these are the most common types of schemes that we see. And today I'm just going to go over ransomware and business email compromise. Those make up the majority of the loss amounts, and I think are probably the two biggest threats that a lot of businesses are facing today. Charles, I believe you're muted.
There you go. Thank you. So before we go to our next slide, I'd like to go over a quick another poll question for our viewers. If you can pull that up. Have you received a phishing email where your business email systems have been compromised? Phishing emails can be, something as simple as a hacker or an email that seems like it's coming from someone who's inside your own business, and they're asking you for information, or they're asking you for documentation on something that seems that could be contain PII or PCI, and that could potentially open you up to a risk. So any type of phishing emails that you've received that have compromised your business email systems.
It looks like we've got the results here. So more even spread this time. We've got 43% that said yes, they have had that. 43% no, and 14% aren't sure. So looks like we've got some we can talk about here in the next slide.
Absolutely. So briefly, I do want to go over the anatomy of a hack. So we call this the cyber kill chain. And this is typically how an actor will target a company or target an organization and plan his attack, and then either exfiltrate data or maintain assistance for content exfiltration data. So first and foremost, cyber actors will conduct recon on your company. For instance, if a cyber criminal wants to perpetrate a financial scam against your company, he may check the company's website for information regarding the CFO or other personnel in your accounting department. Cyber actors can then use social media sites such as LinkedIn, Facebook, etc., to learn more about their target and ultimately use that information to infiltrate the network. Then from there, once they have a foothold, they may move laterally and then try and expand persistence because you don't want to have just one entry. If they have one victim they've compromised and say an IT department learns of that victim, then and that's remediated, then they lose access completely. So always look for the persistence threat. That is very common. We see a lot of lateral movement, and they often gain footholds for persistence. So ransomware is unfortunately something we're seeing more and more of. It's again, ransomware and business email compromises make up the majority of the complaints that we see, the victims that we see. I've personally worked ransomware investigations. There are currently over 700 different variants of ransomware, which, if you look at the news, you only hear of a handful of the bigger ones, but it just goes to show how easy it is to develop this malware and then deploy it as well. So first off, what is ransomware? It's a form of malware that targets both human and technical weaknesses in an effort to deny the availability of critical data in our systems. That's our, book definition. It's delivered through various vectors. We've typically seen it delivered through phishing emails or drive-by, where you visit a website and there's a vulnerability on the website. So if your browser isn't patched, or there's a third-party application, a third-party ad that's loaded, it's then side-loaded into your browser and executed. We're also seeing it more and more deployed through the use of known zero-day vulnerabilities. So, for example, over the news of the last year, there's been a lot of vulnerabilities with VPN systems. Pulse Secure, for example, it's very popular, and it's very easy to use sites like Shodan and other sites that scan the internet for these type of vulnerabilities, and it will literally create a target list for an actor to use. So once you're infected, it's depending on the ransomware variant, it'll either propagate across your network, moving laterally, looking for file shares, and start encrypting files that way, or just may encrypt files on a specific machine. We've seen instances where actors have gained a foothold into the network, and once data is exfiltrated from the network, just as an added bonus, icing on the cake, they'll deploy ransomware in an effort to make even more money. The next is business email compromise. So again, this is something we're seeing a lot of. This is where a victim or a target in an accounting department may receive an email that's hopefully in an effort to fraudulently induce a wire transfer. A lot of times you'll either see an actor compromise a network and then send emails within the organization. So, and you may see an email from a legitimate employee that and he or she may send an email with, hey, we've had a change in wire instructions, or hey, send to this account instead. That's very common, but the most common is an instance where the target will receive an email from a domain that looks very similar. So say you have a vendor sending you an invoice, and here I have an example here on the slide. Instead of ibm.com, it's onebm.com. And they are really banking on human error and hoping that, the day-to-day of sending money back and forth, receiving invoices, paying invoices, that they're able to slip this in through that day-to-day, and then ultimately you can lose a lot of money as a result. And on this, in this example, this 263, that's an actual amount that was sent fraudulently and paid by the victim. So a lot of money can be lost all at once very quickly.
I love that comic that you have there, Agent Buel.
That's my favorite.
and it's so true. I mean, we've seen studies that show, 85 to 90% of breaches happen from a human interaction, right? Them clicking an email, them doing something particular to let that threat into the network. So that comic is just so true.
Yeah, no, I definitely try and use that whenever I can, or show it, because it really is very telling, and it's true. Your network can be as secure as possibly it can be. Look at SolarWinds, for example, that happened in December, right? It was an attack on a supply chain. So, and there's no defense against that. There were mistakes. There was some human error there, and that was the result of the breach. So it was a result of that. So it's human error typically plays a large part in a lot of these types of compromises. So these are just overall recommendations that we have for organizations. We split out our recommendations into 3 categories. First, we'll look at network architecture, segregating your network to prevent lateral movement. Lateral movement is a huge thing, and there's no reason why a VPN user being targeted and compromised should then have access, through a VPN tunnel to the entire network. Really limit what people do on your network, limit what resources are available, segregate the functions of the network. You shouldn't be able really to access engineering data from the HR side of the house. So I think data should definitely be segregated. Connections should be segregated, and that leads into limiting communications through firewall ACLs, through Active Directory, group policy, etc. Implement automated patching. That's a big issue with the 0 days and the constant 0 days that are coming out, the immediate patches that are coming out. Really, you should be patching as soon as a patch is available. You really cannot wait. For example, the Microsoft Exchange vulnerability that was recently released, it was hit the news. A patch was released by Microsoft immediately. However, there were thousands of targets that still had that web shell on their network that had not patched. So it's a big deal. Just don't wait until once a month to patch. Definitely automate your patching and make sure you receive patches as soon as they're available. And then also pen test your network. That's something a lot of people do not do. But periodic pen testing can pay off in spades. It shows you your weak points, and you can identify, once those weak points are identified, you can better protect them. Then we have securing users. So restrict and monitoring remote access to your network, use multi-factor authentication, have password retention policies put in place, implement the principle of least privilege, which I just spoke about. So, again, making sure your users have the least amount of privilege to do their job. Restricting administrator access across the network. There's several network admins, and back, in my former life, when I was a network admin, I would use my administrator accounts for day to day. I would log in and I had administrative rights, and I would check my email, just perform my day-to-day duties. But really, that's times have changed a lot to where administrators should not be doing that. You should have a user account that you use for your day-to-day, and then an administrator account for administrative type tasks. And then finally, securing network activity. So, establish a baseline of applications installed on a network so that you can quickly identify unknown traffic from your known traffic. Know what's on your network, know what's running across your wire. A lot of people don't. They just open everything outbound and call it a day. You should really know what's going on your network, what's going out of your network, what's coming in your network. Implementing encryption when possible. You don't want these attackers to be sitting on your network, just intercepting traffic, reading, user names, passwords off the wire. And then finally, that leads me into conducting content filtering and deploying IDS, IPS solutions. That's a great way to automate what is going on your network. And then finally, my favorite thing, log everything. Please log everything. It's, I'm part of our incident response team here on the FBI, and that is one thing that I wish I had more of, and it's logs. If you ever see a checklist of what to log, just click check everything or log everything, and just call it a day. Just buy more storage, because logs will help you better understand your network. And then when you do become a victim, you will be able to look back on it and quickly identify where those actors are, if they're still on your network, how long they've been on your network, what they've taken. So shifting gears, this is something I like to talk about because, again, in my former life, I didn't talk to the FBI at all. And I didn't even think to call the FBI if I was a victim. Or I didn't think to work with the FBI even before I became a victim. So nowadays, there's so much threat intelligence available for companies, and we have a lot of access to that threat intelligence. We have a lot of intelligence ourselves that we do disseminate, which I'll illustrate later on in the slides. So with that intelligence, it only helps you to work with us or talk with us before you become a victim. Because it's not a matter of if, it's when. That's what everyone says, and it's very true as well. And why not be up and current on trends? If you're in healthcare, for example, we release a lot of pins that are private industry notifications to the healthcare industry in terms of different threats, trends that we're seeing, and whatnot. So definitely work with us before you become a victim, and it also helps us when if you become a victim. It works just to quickly identify potential activity or identify the point of compromise there. These are just 3 of our primary resources that we have available for private sector organizations. PsyWatch, that's our 24-hour command center for cyber intrusion prevention and response operations. They receive a lot of threats and incident reporting. They assess what type of action needs to be done, and then coordinate with the different field offices as appropriate. And then we also have cyber task forces across the U.S. Here in Las Vegas, I'm part of that cyber task force. So if you ever have a need or want to reach out, please feel free to do so. And then finally, we have the Internet Crime Complaint Center. I push IC3 as much as I possibly can, because a lot of people don't know about it, and it's used for victims to report compromise. And a lot of people think they're just reporting into a black hole, or I'm filling out a website form, but it absolutely helps. If you are, even if you think it's really not even worth reporting, it is, because we're able to take all that data and correlate it across the entire U.S. and then find multiple victims, and then open investigations based off that information.
Agent Buel, what are some of the things that they can file on the IC3 website?
So that's specific to cybercrime. So, if you were a victim in any way, network compromise, fraud, BEC, ransomware, romance scams, really anything and everything, please report it. Then these are the different types of methods we have to disseminate our threat intelligence. We have flash messages, which are basically our liaison alert system reports. Those are quick reports that are put out. So with the Microsoft Exchange, there was a flash alert that was sent out. Then we have private industry notifications, which are specific to different sectors. And then we have the public service announcements, which are available on ic3.gov. And those just provide general threats and recommendations for prevention. So fighting the battle to protect your companies from a cyber threat is really everyone in the organization's job. Understanding the ways cyber adversaries target companies is key to addressing these threats. Therefore, those who are involved in purchasing, bill payment, strategic planning, they all must understand their roles and do their best to keep companies safe. Some best practices, is to have a incident response plan, identifying crown jewels of the company and how to protect those crown jewels. Again, know what you're offering and what you're selling, and learn how to protect it. And then partnering with law enforcement. And then finally, the key thing is communication. Who are your trusted partners? Who's connected to your networks? Who provides you your managed services? Are they safe? Are they patched? That's the big thing, is who has access and are they secured as well? And then finally, Infraguard. If you aren't a member, I really recommend becoming a member. This is a great outlet for information, for a lot of those notifications that I talked about. As a member, you have access to an Infraguard portal, which has a lot of that information. We have a lot of intel briefings, analytical products, and also it's a great way to network with other people in your area. And I believe there's also training and education opportunities available as well associated with Infraguard. And that concludes my presentation.
Great.
Awesome.
Great. Yeah, that was great. Thank you, Agent Buel. We did get some questions from our viewers, and I'm hoping we can kind of go through a couple of those with you.
Absolutely.
Now, if we're not able to get to all the questions during this webinar, we are going to send you guys a recording, and you guys can always shoot us an email, and we can go over some things from there as well. I also want to introduce introduce the person who won the raffle. It's Hannah George. So you will receive a gift card via mail, or however you would like to receive it. We'll get in contact with you about that. So first question, this came from our Q&A. Should we also monitor our users to see if their personal information has been compromised? Agent Buel, would you like to answer that one?
I don't know if I can answer that one. I guess that's really between the employer and employee in terms of what's monitored and not. So I would just maybe recommend, as an employer, having training available for your employees, and in terms of securing social media accounts. That's a big factor, and something that I've seen based off experience, where you'll have an employer who has a website developer. He's an admin of their website, and that account is compromised based off of just simply being able to answer the security questions off of someone's Facebook account. So if you think about the security questions, it's, they're very basic. Where's your hometown, or where did I go for a vacation for my honeymoon? And that last one, the honeymoon question, was one that was compromised. And I looked at the target's Facebook account, and he had a Facebook album with pictures in Hawaii. So, it's just things like that it's very easy to do recon on targets, especially with social media being so easily accessible.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why two-factor authentication is definitely preferred and recommended in any situation, because then they have to have more ways of just answering a security question. Right. I'd like to also add, it is between the employer and the employee on what personal information you're monitoring, but we always recommend that you monitor your domain and your users' domain credentials for if they've been breached. There's Have I Been Pawned, there's dark web monitoring resources that we've partnered with as well, to make sure that the credentials related to your business are secure and safe. The personal stuff, you'll have to work with your employees on that.
Another question, I guess it's not so much a question, but a statement that came through the chat, and I think it's more of a concern. With all the different things going on in a business, and all the different communications occurring, logging can become, I guess, as the person stated, quite verbose, right? Mike, are there any tips on how to take care of that, how to store those logs and manage those logs in a way that is a little bit easier to facilitate them?
Yeah, I mean, the best solution would be to do a SIM platform, or some sort of a syslog collector, where you're storing all those logs in a single location, in a single application. It makes it a lot easier to search through those and be aware of what's going on. You can, some of these systems are pretty advanced. You can create all kinds of alerts and monitors that look for failed logins and other type of traffic and other types of things in those logs that you'd want to be aware of. Agent Buel, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, I mean, I think that's pretty spot on. Definitely you have to take into account how much data you have on your network, and that goes into play in how long you retain those logs, so retention policies and logs based on how much data you have. Maybe collecting net flow instead of PCAP if you're collecting network traffic. There's ways to collect logs, but also be efficient about it.
Great. Another question. What information should we ask our vendors regarding security? And Mike, I know we kind of work with, we are usually the IT vendor, so maybe you can kind of talk a little bit more about that one.
Yeah, I think, one of the things you can ask is, do they follow any compliance? Have they gone through and become certified in any area related to security? Those are some of the things you can ask. You can ask if they have any policies, programs, procedures around their security, limiting access, a lot of the things that Agent Buel talked about. Being aware of, are there end users receiving training? Do you have network security protocols in place? You ask them those type of things. That just know that the bigger the vendor, it may be harder to get some of that information. Some of it may be posted on their website. Some of them you may have to do a little digging and work with that vendor's point of contact to collect. Agent Buel, I don't know if you have any information on any of that as well.
No, that sounds right on.
Great. I think I have time for one more. So let's see here. What should I do if I receive a phishing email?
Well, I can jump in here. I guess that depends. Definitely, it really depends on what your company's security posture is on receiving those types of emails. So whether it be yeah, someone said don't open it. That's don't click the link.
Yep.
Yes. So it may be your policy may be deleted immediately. Make a copy of it, send it to your security companies, your network administrator, security personnel. So it really depends. In my mind, I would, if I was network administrator, I would want to know about it and receive and be aware that a user received it, so that I can send out an alert the rest of my user base that there is an email being sent out, or be careful, be wary. But again, it all comes down to the user training.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would say too. Let your IT admin know about it. They can take any necessary steps from there.
Great. So this is great. We're kind of running over on time here. So I would like to thank everyone for joining us. Like I said earlier, you will receive an email for a follow-up consultation, as well as a link to the recording of this video. You can learn more about cybersecurity and tools that you can use to make your business more secure by visiting our website and scheduling a consultation with one of our experts here. If you have any questions about the topic, once again, shoot us an email. And that kind of wraps it up for today. Thank you all for joining, and thank you to our guests.